Part 1. Introduction to Aristotle and his philosophy. Aristotle, one of the most influential philosophers in history, lived from 384 to 322 BCE in ancient Greece. A student of Plato and teacher of Alexander the Great, his works have shaped Western thought for over 2 millennia. Unlike his teacher Plato, who focused on ideal forms and abstract concepts, Aristotle emphasized observing the real world, understanding it through reason, and finding practical ways to live a virtuous and meaningful life. His philosophy covers a vast range of subjects, including metaphysics, ethics, politics, logic, biology, and aesthetics. Aristotle believed that the ultimate goal of human life is eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, flourishing, or living well. Unlike fleeting pleasures, eudaimonia is achieved through developing virtues and fulfilling one's potential. Virtues, according to Aristotle, are not innate but cultivated through habit. He distinguished between intellectual virtues, such as wisdom and understanding, and moral virtues, like courage, temperance, and justice. For Aristotle, practicing these virtues allows a person to act according to reason, which is the defining characteristic of human beings. In the realm of logic, Aristotle developed the syllogism, a form of reasoning where conclusions follow necessarily from premises. His systematic approach laid the groundwork for modern logic and scientific inquiry. By emphasizing careful observation and structured thinking, Aristotle encouraged humans to seek knowledge not only for its own sake, but also to improve their lives and societies. Aristotle's political philosophy also reflects his practical approach. In his work Poetics, he analyzed different forms of government and emphasized the role of the middle class in maintaining stability. He believed that the state exists to promote the good life for its citizens, highlighting the interconnection between personal virtue and social responsibility. One of Aristotle's lasting contributions is his approach to ethics. Instead of rigid rules, he proposed the golden mean, the idea that virtue lies between extremes. Courage, for example, is a balance between recklessness and cowardice. Generosity lies between wastefulness and stinginess. By practicing moderation and reasoned judgment, individuals can cultivate character and lead fulfilling lives. Understanding Aristotle is not just an academic exercise. His ideas provide timeless guidance for self-improvement, decision-making, and understanding the world. His wisdom encourages us to think deeply about our actions, relationships, and the society we build around us. In the following parts of this series, we will explore Aristotle's ideas in detail, covering ethics, logic, politics, science, and art, unpacking how his ancient wisdom remains relevant in the modern world.
Part 2. Aristotle's Ethics and the Pursuit of Eudaimonia. Aristotle's ethical philosophy is central to understanding his vision of a well-lived life. Unlike modern moral frameworks based on rules or consequences, Aristotle's ethics is virtue-centered, focusing on the development of good character. He argued that the purpose of human life is to achieve eudaimonia, which is often translated as happiness, flourishing, or human excellence. However, Aristotle's concept of happiness is not about momentary pleasure or luxury. It is about fulfilling one's potential as a rational and social being. To achieve eudaimonia, Aristotle emphasized the cultivation of virtues, which are stable traits of character that guide our actions. Virtues are learned through practice and habituation, rather than being innate. For instance, a person becomes courageous not merely by understanding courage but by consistently acting bravely in appropriate situations. Similarly, generosity, patience, and honesty are cultivated through repeated practice until they become part of one's character. Aristotle distinguishes between moral virtues and intellectual virtues. Moral virtues, such as courage, temperance, and justice, govern our emotions and actions, enabling us to act rightly in daily life. Intellectual virtues, such as wisdom, understanding, and practical judgment, guide our reasoning and decision-making. Both types of virtues are essential because Aristotle believed that humans are rational animals, and true happiness arises from living in accordance with reason. A key principle in Aristotle's ethics is the golden mean, which describes virtue as a balance between two extremes. Courage is the mean between recklessness and cowardice, generosity between wastefulness and stinginess, and honesty between boastfulness and self-deprecation. The golden mean is not a rigid formula but a practical guide, requiring discernment and context-sensitive judgment. It teaches that virtue is not about denying desires or following strict rules blindly. Rather, it is about harmonizing our impulses with reason to achieve balance and excellence. Aristotle also emphasized the social dimension of ethics. Human beings are inherently social creatures, and our actions are intertwined with the well-being of others. Virtue is exercised not only for personal fulfillment but also to contribute to the flourishing of family, community, and society. Friendship, in Aristotle's view, is a vital component of a good life. He distinguished 3 types of friendships: those based on utility, pleasure, and mutual respect for virtue. Only the highest form, friendship grounded in virtue, truly supports eudaimonia because it encourages both parties to grow and act rightly. Another important concept in Aristotle's ethical thought is practical wisdom, phronesis. Practical wisdom is the ability to deliberate effectively about how to live well, make moral decisions, and respond appropriately to complex situations. It integrates moral and intellectual virtues, enabling a person to navigate life with discernment and integrity. Aristotle believed that virtues and practical wisdom together create a life of moral excellence, where decisions are guided by reason rather than impulse or habit alone. In summary, Aristotle's ethics provides a roadmap for cultivating a flourishing life. By developing moral and intellectual virtues, practicing moderation through the golden mean, nurturing meaningful relationships, and exercising practical wisdom, individuals can achieve eudaimonia. This ancient philosophy offers timeless guidance, reminding us that living well is not merely about seeking pleasure but about shaping our character, making thoughtful choices, and contributing to the greater good. Part 3. Aristotle's Logic and the Foundations of Rational Thought. Aristotle's contributions to logic form one of the most enduring pillars of Western intellectual history. Before him, reasoning was often intuitive and unstructured, but Aristotle transformed the process of thinking into a systematic discipline. His work organon, meaning instrument, became the foundational toolkit for understanding how humans should reason, argue, and discover truth. Through careful observation of argument patterns, Aristotle identified the rules that separate valid reasoning from faulty thinking, giving future generations a powerful method for intellectual clarity. At the heart of Aristotle's logical system is the syllogism. A syllogism is a structured argument made of 2 premises and a conclusion that follows logically from them. For example, all humans are mortal. Socrates is a human. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. This simple structure allows us to test the validity of arguments and uncover hidden assumptions. Aristotle believed that thinking becomes sharper and more precise when we break down ideas into these logical components. Another key aspect of Aristotle's logic is the emphasis on categories, which are fundamental types of things that can be said about an object. These include substance, quantity, quality, relation, place, time, and others. By organizing reality into categories, Aristotle offered a framework for understanding how we describe and classify the world. This method became essential not only in philosophy but also in science, linguistics, and even modern computer science, where categories echo in data structures and classification systems. Aristotle also explored the principles of non-contradiction and excluded middle, which form the foundation of rational thought. The principle of non-contradiction states that something cannot be both true and false at the same time in the same respect. The principle of the excluded middle claims that a statement is either true or false. There is no third option. These ideas became the backbone of logical consistency, helping thinkers avoid confusion, paradox, and ambiguity. Beyond formal reasoning, Aristotle understood that logic has practical value. Clear thinking enables better decision-making, stronger arguments, and deeper understanding. He believed that logic is essential both for science, which seeks universal truths, and for rhetoric, which persuades through structured reasoning. Without logical clarity, arguments become emotional, chaotic, or deceptive. With it, ideas become precise tools for discovering truth. Aristotle's logical system influenced medieval scholars, Renaissance thinkers, and eventually the builders of modern science. For centuries, his framework dominated intellectual inquiry, guiding scholars in theology, biology, mathematics, and philosophy. Even today, when symbolic logic and computer-based reasoning have evolved far beyond ancient methods, Aristotle's foundational principles remain visible. His insight, that clear thinking requires structure, continues to shape how we analyze problems, evaluate evidence, and pursue knowledge. In essence, Aristotle gave humanity a blueprint for rational thought. By teaching how to distinguish valid arguments from invalid ones and by laying out the principles of logical consistency, he provided a universal language for intellectual discourse. His logic empowers us not only to understand the world but to reason about it with clarity, order, and depth. Part 4. Aristotle's view of the soul and human nature. Aristotle's theory of the soul is one of the most profound parts of his philosophy. Unlike many thinkers of his time who treated the soul as a mystical or separate entity, Aristotle saw the soul as the form of a living being, the principle that gives life, purpose, and structure to the body. For him, the soul is not an independent spirit floating beyond the physical world. Instead, it is what makes a body alive, organized, and capable of action. This unified view connects biology, psychology, and philosophy into one powerful system. Aristotle divided the soul into 3 levels, each corresponding to different kinds of living beings. The vegetative soul belongs to plants and governs basic life functions: growth, nutrition, and reproduction. The sensitive soul belongs to animals and adds sensations, desires, and movement. Finally, the rational soul is unique to human beings, granting the ability to think, reason, reflect, and pursue knowledge. This hierarchy shows that human nature contains all the lower functions but adds something higher: the capacity for rational thought. Reason, according to Aristotle, is the noblest part of the soul. It is what separates humans from all other creatures and what allows them to pursue truth, wisdom, and moral excellence. Humans are not born fully rational. They must cultivate their reason through education, reflection, and practice. Only by developing our rational capacities can we reach our highest potential and achieve a flourishing life. One of Aristotle's most important claims is that the soul and body are inseparable. The soul is the actuality of the body, and the body is the material basis of the soul's activities. This means that mental life, emotions, perception, memory, cannot exist independently of the physical organism. Aristotle's view rejected the strict dualism of thinkers like Plato and offered a more integrated understanding of human nature, one that foreshadows modern ideas in psychology, neuroscience, and biology. Aristotle also analyzed perception and its role in knowledge. He argued that perception is the first step in understanding the world. Without sensing, we could not think. But perception alone is not enough. Reason must organize, interpret, and judge what the senses provide. This combination, experience shaped by reason, forms the foundation of true knowledge. Another essential part of Aristotle's psychology is the role of memory and imagination. Memory allows us to preserve past experiences, while imagination lets us create mental images, explore possibilities, and think about things that are not immediately present. These faculties support reasoning, decision-making, creativity, and planning. They give humans the ability not just to react to their environment but to shape their future. Aristotle's theory of the soul reveals his deep understanding of what it means to be human. He saw the human being as a harmony of body and mind, instinct and reason, potential and purpose. Human nature, in his view, is dynamic. It grows, learns, and strives for excellence. His ideas continue to influence modern theories of consciousness, emotion, cognition, and human development. Part 5. Aristotle's political philosophy and the idea of a just society. Aristotle's political philosophy is one of the cornerstones of his thought. He believed that humans are political animals, meaning that we naturally seek community, cooperation, and shared purpose. For Aristotle, political life is not just a practical necessity, it is essential for achieving the highest form of human flourishing. A person isolated from society, he argued, cannot fully develop virtue or reason. Therefore, the state exists not merely to maintain order but to help its citizens live good and meaningful lives. Aristotle saw the evolution of society as a natural process. It begins with the family, expands to the village, and ultimately forms the polis, the city-state. The polis is the highest level of social organization because it provides everything needed for a complete and virtuous life. Without it, humans would lack the structure, laws, and shared values necessary for moral development. Aristotle famously stated that anyone who can live outside the polis must be either a beast or a god, someone who is either below or above human needs. One of Aristotle's most influential political ideas is the importance of the middle class. He believed that a strong and stable middle class creates balance and justice. When society is divided only into rich and poor, conflict becomes inevitable. The wealthy may become arrogant and oppressive, while the poor may become resentful and rebellious. The middle class, however, tends to be more moderate, responsible, and committed to the common good. Aristotle argued that societies governed by a large and healthy middle class are the most stable and just. Aristotle classified governments into proper and corrupt forms. Proper governments aim at the common good, while corrupt ones serve only those in power. Monarchy, rule by one, becomes tyranny when corrupted. Aristocracy, rule by the best, becomes oligarchy when the rich rule selfishly. Polity, rule by the many under law, degenerates into democracy when the majority pursues its own interests without restraint. It is important to note that for Aristotle, democracy in this negative sense meant mob rule, not the balanced democratic systems we understand today. His ideal form of government was polity, a mixed constitution where power is shared, laws are respected, and the middle class plays a central role. A key concept in Aristotle's political thought is that the goal of government is virtue. The state must help citizens develop moral character, practice self-discipline, and participate in public life. Laws should encourage good habits, discourage harmful behaviors, and promote fairness. Politics, in Aristotle's view, is not merely about controlling people, it is about shaping them into better human beings. Education plays a crucial role in this process. Aristotle insisted that the state should provide moral and intellectual education for all citizens. Without proper education, even the best laws cannot prevent disorder or corruption. A well-educated population, guided by reason and virtue, is the foundation of a strong society. Finally, Aristotle emphasized the importance of friendship within a political community. Genuine friendship among citizens creates trust, unity, and mutual respect. It prevents factions and encourages cooperation. He believed that no state could survive without friendship, for it binds people together more strongly than laws or force. Aristotle's political philosophy remains deeply relevant today. His ideas about citizenship, the middle class, education, and the purpose of government continue to shape modern political theory. He reminds us that a just society is not built on power or wealth but on virtue, participation, and shared commitment to the common good. Part 6. Aristotle's Metaphysics and the Nature of Reality. Aristotle's Metaphysics is one of the most influential philosophical works ever written. In it, he asks the most fundamental questions. What does it mean to exist? What is the ultimate nature of things? What causes change, motion, and order in the world? His answers shaped centuries of philosophy and laid the groundwork for Western metaphysical thought. The key concept of Aristotle's metaphysics is substance, ousia. Substance is what exists independently and what makes a thing what it is. Everything else, qualities, shapes, relationships, depends on substance. For example, a human being is a substance. Their height, mood, or clothing are attributes that cannot exist without the underlying person. Understanding substance means understanding the core of reality. To explain how things change while remaining the same, Aristotle developed the famous distinction between form and matter. Matter is the underlying stuff from which things are made, while form is the structure, purpose, or essence that gives matter its identity. Think of a bronze statue. The bronze is matter, and the shape of the statue, its design, is the form. Without form, matter is just a passive material. Without matter, form cannot exist physically. Everything in the world is a combination of these two principles. Aristotle also introduced the doctrine of the four causes, a powerful system that explains why anything exists or happens. Material cause, what something is made of. Formal cause, the structure or essence that defines it. Efficient cause, the agent or force that brings it into being. Final cause, the purpose or end for which it exists. For Aristotle, understanding something fully means knowing all four causes. A house exists because of bricks, material, architectural design, formal, the builders, efficient, and the purpose of providing shelter, final. This teleological approach, emphasizing purpose, became a defining feature of his philosophy. Another major concept is potentiality and actuality. Everything has potential. A seed has the potential to become a tree, a child has the potential to become an adult, a block of marble has the potential to become a statue. Actuality is the fulfillment of that potential. Aristotle believed that change is the movement from potentiality to actuality. This idea helps explain growth, transformation, and even mental development. It also suggests that everything in the world strives to become fully what it is meant to be. Aristotle's metaphysics reaches its peak in the concept of the unmoved mover. He observed that everything in motion is moved by something else. But this chain cannot go on forever. There must be a first cause, something that initiates motion without being moved itself. The unmoved mover is perfect, eternal, and immaterial. It does not move things by force but by being the ultimate object of desire and aspiration. It is pure actuality, pure thought thinking itself. This idea influenced later philosophers and theologians, shaping concepts of God in the Western world. Aristotle's Metaphysics is not abstract for its own sake. It gives a structured way to understand existence, change, purpose, and causality. It bridges the gap between the physical world we observe and the deeper principles that govern it. Even today, questions about essence, identity, purpose, and reality echo Aristotle's ideas. Part 7. Aristotle's Rhetoric. How to persuade with reason, emotion, and character. Aristotle's Rhetoric is one of the earliest and most systematic explorations of persuasion. Unlike the Sophists, who taught rhetoric as a tool for manipulation, Aristotle believed persuasion should serve truth, reason, and ethical communication. His goal was to explain how people think, how they respond emotionally, and how speakers can guide an audience toward understanding. At the core of Aristotle's theory are the three modes of persuasion: ethos, pathos, and logos. These principles are still used today in communication, law, politics, journalism, and storytelling. Ethos refers to the speaker's character. A speaker who appears trustworthy, knowledgeable, and morally grounded is far more persuasive. Aristotle emphasized that credibility is not only about reputation but also about how the speaker presents themselves during the speech, their honesty, fairness, and clarity. Good rhetoric starts with good character. Pathos concerns the emotions of the audience. Aristotle understood that people are not guided by reason alone. Their feelings shape their judgments, decisions, and beliefs. A skilled rhetorician knows how to awaken appropriate emotions: compassion, anger, hope, fear, in a controlled and ethical way. Pathos is not manipulation. It is the art of connecting emotionally to enhance understanding. Logos is the logical structure of the argument. This includes facts, evidence, reasoning, and the clarity of ideas. Aristotle believed that the strongest persuasion occurs when the argument is built on sound logic. He introduced the idea of enthymemes, which are arguments where some premises are left implicit, allowing the audience to complete the reasoning themselves. This makes the argument more engaging and powerful. Aristotle also classified rhetoric into three genres, each with its own purpose. Deliberative rhetoric, used for political decision-making, focuses on future actions, what should or should not be done. Judicial rhetoric, used in courts, deals with justice and injustice regarding past events. Epideictic rhetoric, used in ceremonies and public speeches, praises or criticizes someone in the present. Each type requires a different approach, different evidence, and different emotional strategies. A major insight from Aristotle is that rhetoric must be adapted to the audience. A message that works for one group may fail completely with another. A good speaker understands the listener's knowledge, values, and expectations. Persuasion is a dialogue, not a monologue. Aristotle also analyzed style and delivery. He believed that language should be clear, appropriate, and engaging. Metaphors, rhythm, and vivid imagery can make ideas memorable without becoming excessive. Delivery, tone of voice, pacing, gestures, should support the meaning of the words without distracting from them. What makes Aristotle's rhetoric timeless is its balance. It combines logic, psychology, ethics, and communication. It teaches us not just how to persuade, but how to communicate thoughtfully and responsibly. Whether in public speaking, writing, debating, or everyday conversation, Aristotle's principles help people express ideas with clarity, confidence, and integrity. Part 8. Aristotle's Poetics. Understanding art, imitation, and tragedy. Aristotle's Poetics is the earliest surviving work of literary theory and still one of the most influential. In it, Aristotle seeks to understand why humans create art, how art affects us, and what makes certain forms, especially tragedy, so powerful. His insights shaped centuries of drama, storytelling, and aesthetics. Aristotle begins with the idea that art is imitation, mimesis. But imitation is not mere copying. Humans imitate because they seek to understand the world. Through art, we explore actions, emotions, and experiences in a symbolic form. Even children learn through imitation. For Aristotle, this tendency continues into adulthood through poetry, music, and drama. Art satisfies our natural desire to learn and to find meaning in human experience. Among all forms of literature, Aristotle considered tragedy the highest. Tragedy portrays serious and important actions that evoke pity and fear, leading to a process Aristotle calls catharsis. Catharsis is not simply emotional release. It is the purification or transformation of emotions. By witnessing tragic events on stage, the audience experiences deep emotions in a controlled, meaningful way, which ultimately brings clarity and moral insight. Aristotle defines tragedy by several essential elements. The most important is plot, mythos, which he calls the soul of tragedy. A good plot must have a clear beginning, middle, and end. It must be whole, unified, and purposeful. The best tragedies feature a reversal of fortune, peripeteia, and a recognition, anagnorisis, moments where the protagonist's situation shifts dramatically and they gain crucial understanding. These elements create emotional intensity and reveal profound truths about human life. Another key concept is the tragic hero. Contrary to modern misunderstanding, Aristotle did not believe the hero should be perfectly good or absolutely evil. Instead, the tragic hero is a fundamentally noble character who makes a mistake or possesses a tragic flaw, hamartia. This flaw leads to their downfall, not because they deserve punishment, but because human life is complex and fragile. Their suffering evokes pity, while their flaw evokes understanding, an emotional combination that deepens the audience's insight into human nature. Aristotle also analyzed character, thought, diction, melody, and spectacle. Character supports the plot and reveals moral choices. Thought reflects the ideas and themes of the work. Diction concerns language, style, and the musicality of speech. Melody includes the musical elements of ancient drama, while spectacle refers to the visual aspects of performance. Interestingly, Aristotle considered spectacle the least important, emphasizing that a tragedy's true power lies in its structure and ideas, not in visual effects. One of Aristotle's lasting contributions is his belief that art is not just entertainment, it is a form of knowledge. Through tragedy, audiences confront deep truths about fate, responsibility, suffering, and the limits of human control. Art becomes a mirror through which people understand themselves and their world. The Poetics remains a cornerstone of storytelling theory, from classical plays to modern films. Concepts like the three-act structure, character arcs, and emotional resonance all echo Aristotle's insights. His analysis continues to guide writers, directors, critics, and anyone who seeks to understand why stories shape human culture so profoundly. Part 9. Aristotle's Biology and the Foundations of Scientific Observation. Aristotle is often remembered as a philosopher, but he was also one of the earliest systematic biologists. Unlike many thinkers before him, he emphasized careful observation of the natural world and sought to classify living beings based on their characteristics, behaviors, and environments. His work laid the groundwork for biology and influenced scientific thinking for centuries. Aristotle believed that studying nature is essential for understanding both the physical world and human life. He observed plants, animals, and ecosystems in great detail, recording information about anatomy, reproduction, habits, and habitats. Unlike modern science, Aristotle combined observation with philosophical reasoning, seeking the causes and purposes behind natural phenomena rather than merely cataloguing them. One of Aristotle's key contributions was the classification of living beings. He divided animals into groups based on their modes of reproduction and habitat, distinguishing, for instance, between blooded and bloodless animals, as well as between land, air, and water dwellers. Within these groups, he noted specific features such as limbs, organs, and behaviors. While his classifications were not entirely accurate by modern standards, his method, grouping species according to observable traits, was revolutionary. Aristotle also explored the functions of organs and life processes, noting how each part of an organism contributes to its survival and purpose. This focus on function anticipates later ideas in anatomy and physiology. For Aristotle, understanding a living being means understanding both its structure and its role in nature. He saw life as a hierarchy. Plants have growth and nutrition, animals add sensation and movement, and humans add reason and reflection. Another fundamental principle in Aristotle's biology is teleology, the idea that nature operates toward ends or purposes. Every living being has a natural goal. A seed grows into a tree, a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, and humans strive to realize their rational potential. Observing these processes allowed Aristotle to infer principles about life, growth, and adaptation, emphasizing that living beings are not random collections of parts but purposeful systems. Aristotle also studied development and reproduction. He meticulously described how animals generate offspring, noting patterns, stages, and differences across species. His observations on embryology, though primitive compared to modern science, were systematic and highly influential. He sought to uncover the principles of life, including inheritance, variation, and growth. Importantly, Aristotle's method combined empirical observation with philosophical reasoning. He gathered data from experience but also asked why and how things happen. This approach bridges science and philosophy, showing that careful observation and rational analysis together can yield profound understanding. Even today, Aristotle's biological works are admired for their scope, curiosity, and rigor. His focus on observation, classification, and purpose set the stage for modern scientific methods. He reminds us that to understand life, one must look closely, think deeply, and always seek the reasons behind what we see. Part 10. Aristotle's Ethics and the Importance of Friendship. Aristotle considered friendship, philia, one of the most essential aspects of a happy and flourishing life. In his Nicomachean Ethics, he argued that humans are naturally social creatures, and the quality of our relationships profoundly shapes our character, happiness, and moral development. For Aristotle, friendship is not just a source of pleasure or convenience, it is a vital part of living well. Aristotle identified 3 types of friendship, each with different motivations and value. Friendship of utility. These relationships are based on mutual benefit. People interact because they gain something practical. Business partners, neighbors, or casual acquaintances. Such friendships are often temporary and dissolve when the benefit ends. Friendship of pleasure. These friendships are based on shared enjoyment. People connect because they like each other's company or share common hobbies or interests. While more enduring than utility friendships, they are still largely dependent on pleasure and can fade when interests change. Friendship of virtue. This is the highest form of friendship. It is based on mutual respect for each other's character and virtue. Friends of virtue wish the best for each other for the sake of the other, not for personal gain. These relationships require time, trust, and shared moral values, but they are also the most enduring and fulfilling. Aristotle argued that friendships of virtue are essential for eudaimonia, or human flourishing. A life without these deep, morally grounded relationships is incomplete. Friends support one another in pursuing virtue, help each other correct mistakes, and provide encouragement in times of difficulty. In this sense, friendship is both a reflection and a cultivation of moral excellence. Friendship also has a profound social and political dimension. Aristotle believed that strong friendships form the glue of communities and the foundation of just societies. Citizens who respect, trust, and care for one another contribute to stability and shared well-being. Without these bonds, societies become fractured and unstable. Aristotle emphasized that friendship requires reciprocity and equality. While friendships of virtue are not transactional, they depend on mutual recognition of each other's goodness. Extreme inequality or self-interest can undermine even morally grounded relationships. Friendship flourishes in environments where people can practice fairness, trust, and shared understanding. Moreover, friendship is intertwined with other virtues. Courage, honesty, generosity, and temperance are expressed within relationships. Friends encourage one another to act rightly and help each other grow morally. In this way, Aristotle's ethics is not only about individual development but also about shared human flourishing. Practical applications of Aristotle's ideas on friendship are still relevant today. Modern psychology confirms that close, supportive relationships enhance well-being, resilience, and even physical health. Aristotle's insight reminds us that living well is not only about achieving personal goals but also about cultivating meaningful, virtuous connections with others. In short, Aristotle teaches that true friendship is a mirror and a guide. It reflects our moral character, challenges us to grow, and supports us in becoming our best selves. A life rich in virtuous friendships is a life truly worth living. Part 11. Aristotle's Virtue Ethics and the Practice of Moral Excellence. Aristotle's ethics focuses not on rigid rules but on virtue, the qualities that enable humans to live well. In his Nicomachean Ethics, he argued that morality is about developing good character through practice and habituation, rather than simply following laws or avoiding wrongdoing. This approach, called virtue ethics, emphasizes the cultivation of habits that guide actions toward excellence and human flourishing. At the heart of Aristotle's moral philosophy is the concept of eudaimonia, often translated as happiness or flourishing. Unlike fleeting pleasures, eudaimonia is a lasting state achieved by living in accordance with reason and virtue. Virtue is what enables humans to realize their potential and make the most of their rational and social nature. Aristotle distinguishes between moral virtues and intellectual virtues. Moral virtues, such as courage, temperance, generosity, and honesty, shape our desires and actions. They are developed through repeated practice. We become brave by acting bravely, just as we become temperate by acting temperately. Intellectual virtues, such as practical wisdom, phronesis, and understanding, guide reasoning and judgment. They are cultivated through teaching, study, and experience. Together, these virtues allow people to act wisely and morally in complex situations. A central idea is the golden mean. Virtue lies between two extremes of deficiency and excess. Courage, for example, is a balance between recklessness and cowardice. Generosity is a balance between wastefulness and stinginess. The mean is not a fixed point but depends on the individual and the context, requiring practical judgment and discernment. Aristotle emphasizes that moral life is a dynamic practice, not a set of rigid formulas. Virtue is inseparable from reason. Human beings are rational animals, and living virtuously requires aligning emotions, desires, and actions with reason. Practical wisdom, phronesis, is the ability to make the right decisions in particular circumstances. It enables one to navigate ethical dilemmas, weigh conflicting duties, and act in ways that promote both personal and communal flourishing. Aristotle also connects virtue to community life. Humans flourish not in isolation but in society. Ethical behavior strengthens relationships, supports friendship, and contributes to the common good. Civic virtue and personal virtue reinforce each other. Good citizens cultivate character, and good character supports just societies. Importantly, Aristotle views mistakes and failures as opportunities for growth. Moral development requires reflection, self-awareness, and repeated practice. By examining our choices, learning from errors, and striving to act rightly, we cultivate excellence over lifetime. The relevance of Aristotle's virtue ethics extends to modern life. It encourages us to focus on habits, character, and practical wisdom rather than simply following rules. It reminds us that ethics is lived, experienced, and practiced daily. Small, consistent choices in courage, honesty, generosity, and fairness accumulate to form a flourishing life. In short, Aristotle teaches that morality is an active pursuit. Virtue is learned, practiced, and refined. By striving for the mean, exercising reason, and cultivating both moral and intellectual excellence, humans can achieve eudaimonia, a life of lasting fulfillment and purpose. Part 12. Aristotle's influence on science, logic, and rational inquiry. Aristotle's contributions to human knowledge extend far beyond philosophy and ethics. He laid the foundation for systematic science, formal logic, and critical thinking, shaping the way humans approach understanding the world for centuries. His methods combined observation, classification, and reasoned analysis, creating a framework that bridged practical knowledge and theoretical insight. In science, Aristotle was among the first to study living organisms in a systematic way. He observed animals and plants, recorded their features, behaviors, and habitats, and sought patterns in nature. By classifying species, noting their structures, and examining life cycles, Aristotle pioneered an empirical approach that emphasized careful observation. Though modern biology has refined his conclusions, his methods of detailed study and pattern recognition remain central to scientific inquiry. Aristotle's work in logic was groundbreaking. In the Organon, he developed the syllogism, a structured argument in which conclusions follow logically from premises. For example, all humans are mortal. Socrates is a human. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. This method allows reasoning to be tested and verified. Aristotle's logic system became the foundation of deductive reasoning and influenced mathematics, philosophy, and later developments in formal logic. Critical thinking, for Aristotle, was not purely theoretical. It was practical and ethical. He taught that reasoning should guide action, help resolve conflicts, and uncover truth. By distinguishing valid arguments from fallacies, examining causes, and considering purposes, humans could make wiser decisions in personal life, politics, and science. His approach integrates logic, observation, and ethics, showing that thinking well is inseparable from living well. Aristotle also introduced the idea of teleology in science, that natural processes often have goals or purposes. While modern science emphasizes mechanistic explanations, Aristotle's focus on ends and functions provided a conceptual framework for understanding biological and physical processes as organized and purposeful. Concepts such as adaptation, development, and functionality in living beings echo his teleological perspective. Another lasting influence is Aristotle's emphasis on classification and organization of knowledge. He sought to categorize every area of human inquiry, from metaphysics and ethics to biology and politics. His encyclopedic approach inspired later scholars, particularly during the Middle Ages and Renaissance, to build comprehensive systems of knowledge. Libraries, educational curricula, and the very idea of disciplines owe much to Aristotle's systematic thinking. Moreover, Aristotle's combination of reason and observation remains a cornerstone of modern education. He demonstrated that knowledge is not gained purely from abstract speculation or mere authority, but from careful attention to experience, reflection, and logical analysis. His methods continue to inform research, scientific methodology, and philosophical debate. In essence, Aristotle's legacy is the insistence that the world can be understood through reasoned inquiry, careful observation, and ethical reflection. He taught that humans can use their intellect not only to solve practical problems but also to seek truth and live wisely. The principles he developed over 2,300 years ago continue to underpin science, logic, education, and critical thinking today. Part 13. Aristotle's concept of happiness and the good life. Aristotle's vision of happiness, or eudaimonia, is central to his philosophy and ethics. Unlike fleeting pleasure or superficial success, eudaimonia represents a complete, flourishing life, one that fulfills human potential, cultivates virtue, and harmonizes reason, emotion, and action. For Aristotle, happiness is not a passive state but an active pursuit of excellence in thought, character, and relationships. Eudaimonia is achieved through the development of virtue, both moral and intellectual. Moral virtues, such as courage, honesty, and generosity, guide how we act in daily life. Intellectual virtues, like practical wisdom and understanding, guide how we think, judge, and make decisions. Together, they allow humans to navigate life with integrity, balance, and insight. Without virtue, Aristotle argued, external success or pleasure cannot produce true happiness. A distinctive feature of Aristotle's ethics is the golden mean. Virtue lies between extremes of excess and deficiency. Courage is a balance between recklessness and cowardice. Generosity is a balance between prodigality and stinginess. Achieving this balance requires practical wisdom, phronesis, the ability to deliberate effectively, judge well, and act appropriately in specific situations. Happiness, therefore, is inseparable from thoughtful moral activity. Aristotle also emphasizes the social dimension of happiness. Humans are inherently social beings, and meaningful relationships, including friendships of virtue, play a crucial role in flourishing. Communities, family, and political participation provide opportunities to exercise virtue and develop character. Happiness is not solely personal. It emerges within the context of society, shared purpose, and mutual support. External goods also matter to Aristotle, though they are secondary. Health, wealth, education, and freedom provide the conditions for virtuous activity but are not sufficient by themselves. For instance, a virtuous person without sufficient resources may face hardship, but virtue enables them to live well despite difficulties. Similarly, wealth or pleasure without virtue fails to create true fulfillment. Aristotle viewed life as a lifelong journey of cultivation. Education, habit, reflection, and experience all contribute to the development of virtue and the realization of human potential. Mistakes are opportunities for learning, challenges test character, and relationships refine moral judgment. Happiness, therefore, is dynamic, a process of becoming rather than a static reward. In modern terms, Aristotle's idea of eudaimonia resonates with psychological research on well-being, purpose, and character strengths. It reminds us that lasting happiness comes not from momentary gratification but from developing our abilities, living ethically, and engaging meaningfully with others. Ultimately, Aristotle teaches that the art of living well combines virtue, reason, and social engagement. Happiness is earned, nurtured, and practiced. It is the culmination of a life in which humans fulfill their highest capacities, act with moral wisdom, and cultivate relationships and communities that reflect their best selves. Part 14. Aristotle's influence on modern philosophy, science, and culture. Aristotle's ideas have shaped the intellectual world for over 2 millennia. His philosophy, ethics, science, and political theory provided a framework that influenced thinkers from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance and beyond. Even today, his principles continue to inform modern philosophy, science, and the way we think critically about the world. In philosophy, Aristotle's metaphysics, logic, and ethics have left an enduring legacy. Medieval scholars such as Thomas Aquinas synthesized Aristotelian philosophy with theology, creating a foundation for Christian scholasticism. Renaissance humanists rediscovered his works, applying his methods of observation, classification, and rational analysis to literature, politics, and art. His influence extends to contemporary analytic philosophy, where logic, argumentation, and the careful definition of concepts remain central. In science, Aristotle's emphasis on observation and classification was revolutionary. He may not have discovered modern biological laws, but his method of studying organisms systematically influenced centuries of naturalists. His approach, careful study of phenomena, recording observations, and seeking patterns, mirrors the scientific method that underpins modern empirical research. The balance of theory and observation that he advocated remains a cornerstone of scientific inquiry. Aristotle's ethics and political thought continue to resonate. His virtue ethics, focus on practical wisdom, and concept of the golden mean are foundational for moral philosophy. Modern discussions about well-being, character development, and social justice often echo his ideas. Politically, his insights into citizenship, the role of the middle class, and the connection between ethics and governance remain relevant, especially in discussions of democratic societies and civic responsibility. Beyond philosophy and science, Aristotle influenced arts, literature, and rhetoric. His Poetics shaped Western drama and storytelling, from Greek tragedies to modern novels and films. Concepts like plot structure, character development, and catharsis continue to guide writers and directors. His rhetoric still informs public speaking, debate, and persuasive writing, showing that Aristotle's principles of communication are timeless. Aristotle's holistic approach, connecting ethics, logic, politics, science, and art, highlights the unity of knowledge. He believed that human understanding works best when disciplines are connected rather than isolated. This integrated perspective inspired countless thinkers to seek coherence between different areas of human inquiry, from philosophy and natural science to literature and politics. Even today, Aristotle is a source of practical wisdom. His teachings encourage observation, reason, and ethical reflection in everyday life. From making moral choices to analyzing complex issues, his ideas equip individuals with the tools to think critically, act responsibly, and pursue a flourishing life. In short, Aristotle's influence is everywhere, in philosophy, science, ethics, politics, literature, and education. His methods, insights, and principles continue to guide how we understand the world, how we communicate, and how we live wisely. Part 15. The Wisdom of Aristotle, Applying His Ideas Today. Aristotle's philosophy is remarkable for its depth, clarity, and timeless relevance. Across ethics, politics, science, logic, and art, he offers guidance not only for understanding the world but for living well. In this final part, we reflect on his most enduring lessons and how they continue to inspire modern life. At the heart of Aristotle's thought is the idea that humans are rational and social beings. Our reason allows us to understand reality, make ethical choices, and pursue knowledge. Our social nature means that happiness and flourishing depend on relationships, communities, and shared purpose. To live fully, Aristotle teaches, we must balance personal development with our responsibilities to others. His concept of virtue remains central. Virtue is not abstract. It is developed through practice, reflection, and habit. The golden mean, finding balance between extremes, guides moral decision-making in everyday life. Courage, honesty, generosity, and temperance are cultivated not by simply following rules but by living deliberately and learning from experience. Aristotle reminds us that excellence is earned over a lifetime, not inherited or instantly acquired. Friendship is another pillar of his philosophy. True friendships, based on mutual respect and virtue, support personal growth and provide stability in society. Aristotle emphasizes that our connections with others are not merely social conveniences, they are essential to our moral and emotional development. Meaningful relationships strengthen character, encourage virtue, and contribute to a flourishing life. Aristotle's insights into politics and society are equally valuable today. A just society is one where laws promote virtue, citizens participate actively, and power is balanced to avoid extremes. His emphasis on the middle class, ethical governance, and civic responsibility resonates in modern discussions about democracy, equality, and social cohesion. In science, observation, and logic, Aristotle teaches the importance of careful inquiry. He combined empirical observation with reasoned analysis, showing that knowledge arises from both experience and reflection. This method underpins modern scientific practice, critical thinking, and rational debate. By learning to observe carefully, reason systematically, and question assumptions, we cultivate clarity, understanding, and wisdom. Aristotle also understood the transformative power of art, rhetoric, and storytelling. Through tragedy, poetry, and persuasive speech, humans explore emotions, ideas, and ethical dilemmas. Art becomes a mirror for understanding human nature, shaping our moral sensibilities, and evoking empathy. Aristotle's lessons remind us that thinking, feeling, and acting are interconnected in the pursuit of a full life. Finally, his overarching message is that the good life is an active pursuit. Happiness is not fleeting pleasure but a life of purpose, virtue, knowledge, and meaningful relationships. Aristotle encourages us to reflect, to act wisely, to cultivate character, and to engage with the world thoughtfully. Life, in his view, is a journey of growth, learning, and ethical development. In conclusion, Aristotle's wisdom transcends time. His philosophy equips us to think clearly, act morally, nurture relationships, and pursue lasting happiness. Whether through ethics, politics, science, or art, his teachings provide practical guidance for living a life of reason, virtue, and fulfillment. By studying Aristotle, we gain not only knowledge but a roadmap for flourishing as human beings in a complex world.